The humans must be contained. Supreme Commander Vex Thorn's voice boomed through the grand chamber of the Galactic Confederation, his scaled fist slamming against the pristine white podium. Their expansion into the Orion Sector cannot continue unchecked. From my observation platform, I watched the theatrical display with carefully concealed amusement. The Supreme Commander's crimson scales were practically glowing with self-importance, and his ceremonial armor sparkled under the chamber's crystalline lights. Oh, how they loved their dramatic presentations. As Ambassador Luna Starweaver of the Lumini, I had spent the last 3 cycles watching these proceedings. The Confederation, in their infinite wisdom, had invited us to observe their handling of the human situation. Because obviously the most militaristic species in the galaxy would know exactly how to handle first contact with an emerging civilization. Our intelligence reports show human colonies spreading across 17 new systems in the past solar cycle alone. Vex Thorn continued, his tail swishing with agitation. They breed like thoraxian rabbits and adapt faster than a quantum computer. Several council members gasped appropriately on cue. I fought the urge to roll all 4 of my eyes. The Confederation's theatrical politics were almost as refined as their weapon systems. Ambassador Starweaver Vex Thorn turned his attention to me, his lip curling into what he probably thought was a respectful smile. Surely the Lumini understand the threat these humans pose. Your people have observed countless civilizations rise and fall. I straightened my silver robes and activated my hover platform, bringing myself to eye level with the Supreme Commander. The Lumini observe, Commander Thorn. We do not judge. My bioluminescent markings pulsed with subtle patterns of calm. Though I must note that your description of human expansion neglects to mention they have not violated a single established territory boundary. Yet Zara Knight, the Confederation's intelligence director, sprang from her seat, her black feathers ruffled with indignation. They will consume everything in their path. We have seen it before. Have you, I asked, letting my markings shift to a pattern of mild curiosity. Or have you seen what you expected to see? The chamber erupted into murmurs. Supreme Commander Thorn's scales darkened with anger. The decision has been made, Ambassador. We invited the Lumini to observe, not to question. The containment fleet launches in 3 cycles. I inclined my head in acknowledgement, though my inner lights pulsed with concern. The Confederation's arrogance was about to collide with something they had never encountered before. As I watched them congratulate themselves on their decisive action, I couldn't help but think that they had gravely misunderstood what they were dealing with. These weren't the savage primitives they were expecting. These were humans. And if my observations were correct, the Confederation was about to learn a very expensive lesson about the difference between peaceful and weak. Very well, Commander, I said softly. We will observe. That is what we do best. As I left the chamber, my communication implant buzzed with an encrypted message from the Lumini Council. Things were about to get very interesting indeed. Back in my private chambers aboard the Lumini observation vessel Star Whisper, I reviewed the latest reports on human expansion. The holoscreen before me displayed a beautiful chaos of interconnected colonies, trade routes, and cultural exchanges. Confederation analysts had labeled it aggressive territorial acquisition. I called it something else: adaptation. Computer, play human cultural exchange program, file 847, I commanded. The screen shifted to display what the Confederation feared most: humans being, well, human. A young colonist on Terra Nova was teaching a Rigelian merchant how to make something called pizza in another feed. A human medical team had modified their entire hospital to accommodate the unique gravitational needs of their Centaurian patients. Each image, each interaction, told the same story, one the Confederation refused to see. Ambassador Starweaver, my assistant Wren, called from the doorway, his crystalline form refracting light in patterns of concern. The Confederation's latest diplomatic mission to Earth has returned. Let me guess, I said, my bioluminescent patches flickering with sardonic amusement. The humans failed to properly cower before their military might. Wren's crystals darkened. They invited the delegation to something called a barbecue. Supreme Commander Thorn is calling it a deliberate insult. I couldn't help but laugh. The Confederation, with all its military might and political maneuvering, completely failed to understand that humans trying to feed you was their highest form of diplomacy. The holoscreen blinked with a new alert: another emergency council session. The Warhawks were circling. I pulled up the latest expansion data, preparing my notes. Humans have established diplomatic relations with 94% of their neighboring species, I dictated while Ren recorded. Trade agreements have increased local system productivity by an average of 327%. Technological exchange programs have accelerated development in medical, agricultural, and environmental sciences. And yet the Confederation sees only threats, Ren observed. Because that's all they know how to see, I switched to the military channel, where Admiral Chen Rodriguez of the Human Defense Fleet was calmly explaining to a furious Confederation attaché why their ships couldn't simply quarantine Earth's colonies. Your blockade would disrupt medical supply lines to the Proxima colonies, the Admiral was saying. We cannot allow that. You dare to defy the Confederation, the attaché sputtered. Sir, we're not defying anyone. We're protecting everyone, including your own citizens who rely on our medical facilities. Perhaps we could discuss alternative arrangements over coffee. I marked that exchange for the Lumini Council. The humans' persistent attempts at diplomacy, even in the face of threats, was remarkable. But more remarkable was their steel core of determination. They weren't aggressive, they were protective of everyone. My personal research terminal chimed with new data. Human colony ships had just diverted from their planned expansion route to assist a damaged Confederation patrol vessel. Even now, even after all the threats and posturing, they still stopped to help. Ren, I said, my markings pulsing with decision, prepare a direct channel to the Lumini Council. The Warhawks are winning the argument in the Confederation, but they don't understand what they're about to start. The humans appear weak to them, Ren noted, his crystalline form shifting thoughtfully. Because they keep extending peace. Yes, I agreed, bringing up footage of human ships forming defensive lines around refugee convoys from both sides of a local conflict. The Confederation mistakes their dedication to peace as weakness, their adaptability as aggression, and their inclusivity as a threat. And what do you see, Ambassador? I watched as human doctors treated Confederation citizens in their hospitals, as human engineers helped rebuild alien worlds, as human diplomats worked tirelessly to prevent the very war that the Confederation seemed determined to start. I see the future, I answered, my markings glowing with certainty. The Confederation thinks humanity needs to be contained. They don't realize that humanity has already changed everything, simply by refusing to see anyone as an enemy until absolutely forced to do so. The Emergency Council alert flashed again, more urgently this time. War was coming, because the Confederation couldn't understand a species that had grown strong through peace rather than conquest. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their ships, their technology, or even their adaptability. It was their capacity to make allies of everyone they met. Everyone, that is, except those who threatened the peace they had worked so hard to build. The Confederation struck at dawn, Earth Standard Time. Because of course they did. Their tactical predictability would have been amusing if not for the thousands of lives at stake. I watched from the Star Whisper as their warships dropped out of hyperspace above the human colony of New Eden. Containment operations have begun. Supreme Commander Thorn's smug voice echoed through all channels. The humans will learn their place in the galactic order. But the humans, as usual, had other plans. The colony's shields snapped into place microseconds before the first bombardment shields that, according to Confederation intelligence, shouldn't have existed. More interesting was their design, which bore a striking resemblance to Centaurian technology. Apparently, those cultural exchange programs had been more productive than anyone suspected. Ambassador Ren's crystalline form vibrated with urgency. Incoming transmission, heavily encrypted. It's from Jack Morrison. I activated my private communications array. The human diplomat's hologram appeared, looking surprisingly unruffled for someone whose colony was under attack. Ambassador Starweaver, I hope I'm not interrupting your observations. Not at all, Diplomat Morrison. I trust New Eden's defenses are holding. He smiled, that peculiar human expression that could mean anything from amusement to impending violence. Let's just say we had excellent teachers. The Centaurians were quite helpful after we saved their medical station last year. On my tactical display, I watched New Eden's defensive fleet emerge from behind the system's third moon. The ships moved with precision that spoke of extensive training, and their design showed influences from at least 6 different species. Confederation forces, this is Admiral Chen Rodriguez, a calm voice broadcast on all frequencies. You are conducting hostile actions against a civilian colony. Withdraw immediately. Supreme Commander Thorn's laughter filled the channels. You dare to give orders to the Confederation? Fire at will. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The human fleet didn't just fight back, they danced. Each ship moved in perfect coordination, using maneuvers that combined Rigelian speed with Thoraxian defensive formations. Their weapons showed the elegant precision of Delphian targeting systems combined with human ingenuity. Remarkable, I said to Morrison, whose hologram was calmly sipping something called coffee. Your people have learned well. We're good students, he replied. And we believe in learning from everyone we meet. Speaking of which, he leaned forward. The Lumini have observed countless civilizations, haven't you? I kept my expression neutral, though my bioluminescent patterns probably betrayed my interest. We have. And in all that time, has any species ever achieved lasting peace through force? Clever human. He was probing, but not for military secrets. No, I answered honestly. Peace through force is merely delayed war. The tactical display showed the Confederation fleet in disarray. The humans had trapped them in a complex web of gravitational distortions technology they developed in partnership with the Proxima colonies for mining operations. Commander Thorn, Admiral Rodriguez's voice was still eerily calm. Your ships are disabled but intact. We will provide emergency power and medical assistance as needed. Perhaps now we can discuss this situation over dinner. Morrison's hologram grinned at my obvious surprise. We learned something interesting while studying galactic history, Ambassador. Every major conflict ended one of 2 ways, either with complete destruction or with people sharing a meal. My markings pulsed with sudden understanding. That's why you keep inviting everyone to these barbecues. Breaking bread together is an ancient human tradition. Hard to maintain hostilities when you're passing the salt. On the display, human medical ships were already moving to assist the disabled Confederation vessels. Even now, even after an unprovoked attack, they still reached out with open hands. The Confederation won't stop, I warned. They'll see this mercy as weakness. Probably Morrison agreed. But we'll keep trying. Because the moment we stop trying for peace is the moment we become what they fear we are. He paused, studying me with those clever human eyes. The Lumini understand that, don't they? That's why you observe instead of interfere. You're waiting for species to learn this lesson on their own. My markings flashed with surprise before I could control them. In all our centuries of observation, no species had ever deduced our true purpose so quickly. The Confederation calls for my head. Supreme Commander Thorn's enraged voice shattered the moment. This humiliation will be answered with overwhelming force. We will burn every human colony to ash. Morrison sighed. I don't suppose the Lumini would consider moving beyond observation, just this once. I thought of the countless civilizations we had watched rise and fall, the endless cycle of violence and retribution. And then I thought of these humans who had looked at the stars and seen not conquest to be made, but friends they hadn't met yet. Send me the details of your next barbecue, Diplomat Morrison, I said. I believe it's time the Lumini tried some human cuisine. His grin widened. I make excellent hamburgers. Shall we say tomorrow? After we finish rescuing our misguided friends. I watched as human ships carefully towed disabled Confederation vessels to safety, their crews already preparing medical teams and emergency supplies. 10,000 years of Lumini observation, and we had never seen anything quite like this. Tomorrow, then, I agreed. I believe the Lumini Council will be very interested in discussing humanity's approach to galactic diplomacy. As Morrison's hologram faded, I turned to Ren. Prepare a full report for the Council. And Ren, include a note about bringing dessert to the barbecue. I understand that's an important human diplomatic tradition as well. The Confederation had wanted to contain humanity. Instead, they had just unleashed something far more powerful than any weapon humanity's capacity to make allies through kindness, even in the face of aggression. Poor Commander Thorn. He had no idea what was coming. The Lumini Council chamber hummed with nervous energy as thousands of bioluminescent patterns flickered across the crystalline walls, reflecting the agitated state of its occupants. I stood at the center, my own markings carefully controlled as I prepared to do something no ambassador had done in 10 millennia. Advocate for intervention. Honorable Council, I began, my voice carrying through the chamber. The situation has changed. The Confederation prepares a fleet of 10,000 ships, not for containment, but for extinction. Council leader Hela Brightwind's patterns flashed with concern. Ambassador Starweaver, you understand what you're asking? 10,000 years of neutrality. Perhaps 10,000 years is enough, I interrupted, triggering shock patterns across the chamber. Computer, display intelligence file TC-917. The chamber's center filled with a hologram showing Commander Thorn's private communication with his generals. His scales were dark with rage as he spoke. The humans cannot be allowed to continue. Their very existence threatens everything we've built. They show other species that cooperation is stronger than conquest, that peace is preferable to power. They must be eliminated, along with any who embrace their ideology. The Confederation fears humanity, I continued, not for their weapons or their expansion, but for their ideas. They've created a network of allies through kindness, something the Confederation never imagined possible. We observe Council Member Rax stated firmly. That is our way. Is it? I challenged. Computer, historical file L001, First Council decision. The chamber filled with ancient text, glowing in the original Lumini script. We choose to observe so that we may guide when the time comes. Gasps echoed through the chamber. This was our oldest law, the one that established our role as observers, but most had forgotten its second half. The time has come, I said softly. Humanity isn't just another species discovering the stars. They're teaching the galaxy a new way. Computer, display cultural exchange network. A vast web of connections appeared, showing thousands of points of light, each representing a successful collaboration between humans and other species. Medical breakthroughs, technological advances, cultural festivals, educational programs. In the 3 cycles since first contact, humanity has created more cross-species cooperation than the Confederation achieved in 1,000 years. And now, the Confederation moves to destroy them for this crime. Hela Brightwind's patterns showed deep thought. You attended their barbecue, did you not? Tell us. They served food to Confederation prisoners, I said. The same meals they gave their own people. They treated injuries, shared stories, and invited their attackers to become friends. It was my markings pulsed with emotion. It was what we've waited 10,000 years to see. The Confederation will not stop at humanity, I continued. They'll destroy every species that has learned to cooperate instead of compete. Everything humanity has built will be reduced to ash, and the galaxy will learn that peace is punishable by death. The chamber erupted in debating patterns, thousands of lumini arguing through light and color. I waited, watching the shifted colors ripple through the crowd. We have technology that could help them, Council Member Vex noted. Defense systems beyond anything the Confederation has seen. Not just technology, I added. We have truth. Our observations over millennia prove that humanity's path leads to genuine civilization. The Confederation's leads only to endless war. Hela Brightwind rose, her patterns commanding attention. 10,000 years ago, our ancestors chose to watch and wait for species worthy of our guidance. They chose neutrality not as an end, but as a means to recognize those who would use power wisely. She turned to me. Ambassador Starweaver, you believe humanity is worthy? No, I replied, causing confused patterns to ripple through the chamber. I believe humanity has proven that we are worthy of them. Silence fell. Then, slowly Hela's patterns began to glow with decision. The time of observation ends. The time of action begins. Ambassador Starweaver, you will inform the humans that the Lumini stand with them. As I left the chamber, my comm unit chimed. A message from Jack Morrison. How about another barbecue? I hear the Lumini make excellent company." I smiled, my patterns glowing with anticipation. The Confederation had no idea what they'd unleashed. They thought they were facing one species. They were about to face a revolution. The Lumini defense platforms emerged from subspace like ghostly sentinels, their crystalline structures catching starlight in ways that defied physics. The Confederation fleet, 10,000 ships strong, dropped out of hyperspace to find themselves surrounded by technology they had never imagined existed. "What trickery is this?" Supreme Commander Thorn's voice crackled through the command channel. "The Lumini are observers, nothing more." "Correction," I broadcast, my voice carrying the full authority of the Lumini Council. "We were observers, now we are participants." Admiral Chen Rodriguez's voice joined the channel, as calm as ever. "Commander Thorn, your fleet is surrounded by Lumini defense platforms and human ships. Once again, we invite you to stand down and join us for diplomatic discussions." The Confederation response came in the form of plasma torpedoes which passed harmlessly through the Lumini platforms and dissipated into nothingness. 10,000 years of observation had taught us much about defense. "Fascinating design," Jack Morrison commented from the bridge of his diplomatic vessel, "almost like they're not really there." "Quantum displacement technology," I explained. "We find it more elegant than traditional shields. Though I must say your gravity well projectors add an interesting tactical dimension." On the tactical display, human ships moved through the ghostly Lumini platforms with practiced precision. The joint training sessions had paid off two species, working in perfect harmony, their strengths complementing each other. "Target their weapon systems," Admiral Rodriguez ordered. "Lumini platforms, please provide targeting data." What happened next was almost beautiful. The Lumini platforms released streams of quantum-entangled particles, marking every weapon system in the Confederation fleet with microscopic precision. Human gravity projectors followed these markers, creating localized distortions that literally twisted the targeted weapons into useless shapes. Commander Thorn's outraged roar filled the comms. "This is impossible. You're nothing but peaceful observers and weak diplomats." "Funny thing about peace," Morrison replied. "It gives you lots of time to develop really interesting technology. You should try it sometime. Over barbecue, perhaps." The Confederation fleet tried to retreat, but the combined human-Lumini force had predicted this. Quantum fields disrupted their hyperspace calculations while gravity wells held them in place. Not to destroy, never to destroy, but to demonstrate the futility of their aggression. "Commander Thorn," Admiral Rodriguez called out, "your weapons are disabled. Your engines are contained. Your shields are failing. Would you like to discuss terms?" "The Confederation does not surrender." "Who said anything about surrender?" I interjected. "We're inviting you to dinner. The humans have something called cheeseburgers. They're quite remarkable." The tactical display showed Confederation ships powering down one by one as their crews realized the futility of their situation. Not a single ship had been destroyed. Not a single life had been lost. The combined human-Lumini strategy had achieved what the Confederation had always thought impossible: victory through peace. "This is Admiral Chen Rodriguez to all Confederation vessels. Medical ships are approaching to provide assistance. Engineering teams stand ready to help repair your gravity drives. And yes, our mess halls are preparing food for everyone." I watched as human ships moved to assist their former attackers, Lumini platforms providing safe corridors for rescue operations. The Confederation crews emerged from their ships to find not conquerors, but helpers. Not enemies, but potential friends. "An interesting strategy," Morrison noted, watching the rescue efforts. "Using quantum entanglement for targeting, but medical ships for the response." "We learned from you," I replied. "The Lumini had the technology, but humanity showed us the best way to use it. Not to destroy, but to protect. Not to defeat, but to connect." Commander Thorn's ship was the last to power down. As human medical teams approached his vessel, I received a private message from him. "How? How did you defeat us without destroying us?" "We didn't defeat you, Commander," I responded. "We helped you. There's a difference. Now, about that barbecue." The stars watched silently as history changed course. The mighty Confederation fleet hung powerless in space, surrounded not by wreckage and death, but by the outstretched hands of those they had come to destroy. Humanity had taught us that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice to help instead. And now, together, we would teach it to the rest of the galaxy. One barbecue at a time. Supreme Commander Thorn stood before the combined human-Lumini Council, his scales now a dull gray of defeat, but his eyes still burning with defiance. The great chamber that once hosted only Confederation declarations now held representatives from 50 species, all brought together by humanity's relentless diplomacy and the Lumini's ancient wisdom. The Confederation will never accept this new order, Thorn spat, his tail lashing against the polished floor. Our way is strength. Our way is. Your way is over, Jack Morrison interrupted, not unkindly. Look around you, Commander. What do you see? The chamber buzzed with activity. A Centaurian crystal smith was teaching a Thoraxian warrior about art. A human doctor consulted with a Regelian biologist about cross-species medicine. Even a few young Confederation officers were engaged in animated discussion with their former enemies. I see weakness, Thorn growled. I see the death of everything we built. No, I stepped forward, my bioluminescent patterns forming gentle waves of understanding. You see everything you could have built if you had tried cooperation instead of conquest. Admiral Rodriguez approached, carrying something that made Thorn's scales ripple with confusion, a piece of paper. This is your copy of the new Galactic Charter, the Admiral explained. You'll notice your signature block is right at the top, next to mine. You expect me to sign my own surrender? Actually, Morrison chimed in. It's your promotion. The Confederation's military experience would be invaluable in the new combined defense force, protecting trade routes, conducting rescue operations, teaching others to defend themselves. Thorn's tail stopped its angry lashing. You would trust us with such power? After everything. I let my patterns shift to show sincerity. The Lumini spent 10,000 years watching civilizations rise and fall. You know what we learned? True power isn't about holding others down, it's about lifting them up. The Confederation knows more about fleet operations than anyone, Rodriguez added. We need that knowledge, not to wage war, but to keep peace. Thorn looked around the chamber again, seeing it with new eyes. The Confederation's greatest rivals were now working together, creating something greater than any single species could achieve alone. And if we refuse, then you'll miss out on next week's barbecue, Morrison grinned. I hear Chef Chen is fusing Thoraxian spices with human barbecue recipes. Could be historic. A small ripple of amusement passed through Thorn's scales, the first sign of genuine emotion I'd seen from him. You really do solve everything with food, don't you? Hard to plot conquest on a full stomach, Morrison winked. Slowly, with dignity that surprised even me, Supreme Commander Thorn picked up the pen. The Confederation traditionally uses blood signatures for important documents, he said. That's fine too, Rodriguez smiled. We're big on respecting traditions. As Thorn signed, the chamber erupted in cheers. Not celebration of victory, but joy at welcome. Another barrier fallen, another bridge built. Ambassador Starweaver, Thorn turned to me. The Lumini could have crushed us at any time in the past 10,000 years. Why didn't you? Because I replied, my patterns showing the wisdom of ages, true change can't be forced. It must be chosen. Humanity showed us that. They met our observation with innovation, our caution with courage, and now. I gestured around the chamber. They've given us all a chance to choose a better way. Speaking of choices, Morrison interrupted. Chef Chen's fusion barbecue is ready in the diplomatic dining hall. I believe it's time for the first official meal of the new combined council. As we walked to the dining hall, I watched Thorn's posture slowly relax. His scales began to show hints of their natural crimson as he engaged in cautious conversation with a human cultural adage about Confederation military traditions. Remarkable species, humans, Thorn muttered to me. They defeated us with kindness, then made us partners. No, I corrected him, my patterns showing amusement. They showed us all that we were already partners. We just needed a good meal to realize it. The new galactic order wasn't built on weapons or fear. It was built on shared meals, exchanged stories, and the simple truth humanity had known all along, that the strongest bonds are forged not in war, but in peace. And somewhere in the dining hall, Chef Chen was proving that truth, one plate at a time.